Well, it's Thursday, and I think maybe one of the best things we can do today is to have a little family talk. All of you are aware that everywhere we've turned over the last few days, there's been a discussion that has begun to come to the forefront at the national, at the state, and at the local level regarding the process of reopening America and ultimately rescinding the shelter-in-place orders that we have been living under in these days. And so that means several things. One, it tells us that there is the possibility of some change on the horizon of the future, but it also tells us that we need to use extreme caution in what we would do and how we would do it. Certainly, there are a lot of views and a lot of voices out there right now, and that can be very confusing to all of us as we try to address it. I know that there are a couple of things that I can share with you by observation. One of them is that in the whole, in our community, we've done pretty well. And I'm very thankful for that. Let's just pause and be grateful that this has not been worse and that the cases have not increased faster and spread more widely than they could have. It's been good, and that means that a lot of precautions have been taken. We've helped to flatten the curve, but let's also understand we're not at all out of the woods. The coronavirus is still a very formidable issue for us to face in life, in our community, in our state, and in our nation. And so while this virus continues, I am fully aware there are a lot of people that have cabin fever, and you're ready to get out of the house and you're ready to get re-engaged in life. But there are a lot of things that we have to understand before we begin to take action on this. I have personally been involved with some very credible and very significant voices in both our medical community and in ministry across the nation and throughout the state, trying to see how people are viewing and discussing responses to this. Certainly, in addition to that, I've been speaking with our staff and some lay leadership as well, just wanting to be sure that we're all understanding together where we are and what we need to do. And I know that's what you want to know. Pastor, what are we going to do? Well, I think there's several things that we're going to do. Number one, first and foremost, we are going to be very patient and we are going to be very protective in any decisions and actions that we take. Our president, vice president, and the healthcare task force that he has assembled has actually already published and delivered a 3-phase process for the reopening of America. The first one of those phases is beginning to be implemented by several of our states, but in that phase, it is still underscored that those who can should continue to work from home. Some can return to the workplace for the sake of their livelihood, but only with the strictest of precautions in social distancing, in the personal hygiene of hand washing and covering, and really many of them even to consider working with masks and with gloves. Some people, of course, simply cannot do this and need to continue to work at home. But we want to be sure that we observe what happens before we act on what we will do next. And so I just want to say to you at the outset that the church offices at Warren will not open before Monday, May the 4th at the earliest. And even then, we will be restricted as to what level of staff returns and access to the building at that time. I just think this is wise. I think this is best. But like I need to be sure and underscore with you, even what happens next week could affect that decision and that direction for us. So that's number one. Number two, we're going to keep playing to our strengths. I really believe that the strength of these days has been that we have quickly been able to pivot in leadership and to be able to provide connection and continuity in ministry. We've done that through worship. We've done that through weekday ministry, through prayer experiences, and all sorts of things. And so I just want you to know how incredibly grateful I am to be able to lean on and lean into a wonderful staff team, staff of whom every week you would have never seen and heard from me had they not been at the epicenter of the activity to allow me to be able to communicate with you, as well as helping to work behind the scenes. Please know that this has not been a time of relaxation or vacation for our ministry staff or really any of our team. Our team has worked tirelessly and relentlessly to make sure that we are engaged in delivering ministry. And I'm so proud of them. I couldn't have been more proud this week than when we began to have discussion at the state level of gyms possibly opening, and a whole group of people began to respond to Cherie Hurd, who is the director of our sports and fitness ministry, saying, is the FLC going to open? And she so carefully and cautiously underscored that there are many levels of activity and responsibility that we need to consider before we do this. And while we miss being together, and while we hurt to see these facilities sit vacant, we wouldn't do anything to cause someone to potentially be susceptible or vulnerable. And so we're going to play to our strengths. And though it's been hard to get to a place of doing ministry in a way we've not done it, that doesn't mean we can't do it, and we're going to keep doing that. And then third, and most importantly for us, we're going to be very proactive in the way in which we respond and not reactive. You know, it's really easy to just get reactive. Hey, let's get out of the house. Let's go back to church. Let's do these things. But ladies and gentlemen, that's just not a wise thing for us to do. And we are going to be wise and patient in our leadership. I don't know what other churches, I don't know what other pastors may choose to do or begin to discuss doing, but I want you to know that I believe my job is to watch over the flock of God that has been entrusted to me. And I would not for a moment do anything that would create an opportunity for those who are vulnerable, for those who are susceptible, to be somehow exposed and to face the potential of the loss of life and illness because of a very careless decision in days that need highest of caution. This is a real-time experience. This is something where we're having to make judgment calls and decisions daily and weekly. And I'll continue to update you and talk to you through the process of how we would re-engage ministry. But I want to remind you that we're a large church with a very broad scope of ministry. And I want to remind you that it takes hundreds of people to open our doors on Sunday, to care for children, to teach in classes, to do all of those things. And we cannot quickly do that. In fact, that will not happen until the plan that the President and others have laid out is in phase 3, which is weeks away from where we are today. And so I just want to urge you and I want to ask you to be patient, to use every precaution, to be prayerful. You pray for me. I'm praying for you. Let's pray for one another. But most importantly, let's be principled. And what is the principle? That we think of others before we think of ourselves. Remember that message? Love one another. Loving one another means that I want what's best for others more than I want what's easiest and most enjoyable for me. So we've been talking about that. We're going to continue to grow in understanding how to best care for and how to best provide for one another. In fact, this Sunday, we're going to be talking about encourage one another. And so I want to encourage you to see you and to be with me then. Sunday morning, 10 a.m., I look forward to seeing you. The Lord bless you. Let's continue to be patient, and let's trust that the Lord has a purpose in these days.